Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Meche, and I am the Smoker Broker. Happy Thursday to you. Hope everything's going well. Hope we are cruising through the weekend. We are streaming live on KBGI Media, coast to coast, sometimes across the world. We have a few people every once in a while on the other side of the pond that reach out and ask us a few questions. So, hope everything's going good. We are continuing to move forward with this Corona pandemic, epidemic, whatever you want to call it. All the types of names that are associated with it. But it does seem to get better every week. We continue to do the show on a regular basis, talking about real estate because we want to keep the normalcy, but we have to address the corona issue on a weekly basis because it does seem to be changing every week. And so we're going to continue to start the show with that, with just a small summary as to what we have seen. I have these similar conversations with my crew on a weekly basis as well. So it just makes sense to have it on the show as we continue to educate the general population and the agents that are out there as to what's going on. We do seem to be moving in the right direction. The entire country doesn't agree. I don't think anybody's ever going to agree that this is what we should do, this is what we shouldn't do. You watch some outlets, it's ridiculous. Some people will sit there and have one opinion, the other will have this. And the bottom line is not all of us are going to agree on what is going to happen. But it is a fact that we are moving forward in a lot of the country, starting tomorrow, where a lot of the states have eased the restrictions to where people can go out and enter into the retail environments. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be like used to. And I don't think it ever will be the same, to be honest with you. But it is something that we can move forward with. We do move on. We continue to move on like we always do. We're resilient people. We adapt to just about everything that comes our way, and we're doing so with this. So you're going to start seeing an ease of the restrictions, which means you're not going to be able to go into mass quantities in our crowds and sit next to people and have people right next to each other, and that's not going to happen probably quite for some time. But it does look like you'll be able to at least go into a retail environment where you're separated. I will admit, Costco seems to be doing, and I have no affiliation with Costco, I'm just using an example of something that I've seen. Costco seems to have been doing a really very good job as to what the social distancing looks like. They have, when you go in, they have X amount of people that they let come in. They now, and this is interesting, as of yesterday, they now are requiring the mask to be on. And I got to tell you, I'll be opinionated on this one. There are people out there that do disagree with whether you should be forced to put a mask on. Look, to each their own. I will tell you this. The mask is so that you protect others. It's not to protect yourself. And to me, I get a little uneasy when I'm out there if someone doesn't have that mask on, and if they do cough, I'm like, hey, you can be a little more respectful that I'm out there and I don't want it. The mask isn't going to help me from not, catching it, but it damn well could help me from spreading it to somebody else. And I like the fact that Costco has now included that you do have to have the mask when you go in there. Costco also does something really interesting too. There are roamers in the store that if you're too close to somebody, they'll make you move. I was in there the other day, and I have to admit, a lady was annoying me. She annoyed me two ways. One, she didn't have a mask on, and two, she was right over my shoulder. And before I could do anything, the Costco employee came in there and go, hey, ma'am, you need to at least be this far away. And it's funny. She was the one who was annoyed. You're the one who's annoyed. I'm the one who's annoyed by it. But Costco's doing a really good job as to what I think is going to be the norm for the next 6 months, where people who are responsible are saying this is the way it has to be. And you know what? I'm still able to go through, do my shopping, not be that affected by it, except with the annoyance of the mask itself. And it worked. And I think that's what we're looking at. Again, that's opinionated. Everybody has different opinions. People on this call might have, people on my crew might have different opinions. And that's what makes this country great, is that you can have opinions. But I do think that's what you're looking at as we move forward. So they're going to open up. We're going to get out there for our industry in real estate, which is why we are here. We are probably least affected as far as the operation piece of it. We're already in small groups as it is. We can adapt to having masks, gloves if we want, disinfectant. This is not that hard for us. We just have to have the general public at ease that we're doing it. And I think everybody's getting closer to that one way or another, we have to move forward. And if that's the way it has to be, then that's the way it's going to be. So for us, I think it's going to be a little bit easier for us to get out there and move forward and start acknowledging what this new world looks like. So that's kind of a good piece for us. The other piece about, I think as far as a positive step, you have a lot of people out there who are worried about finances, a lot of people who are unemployed. This is going to start opening up that a little bit and maybe ease a little bit of those fears that we are going to move on. And this isn't going to be like a 7-month, hey, you can't do anything, which to some people they want to, and I do struggle with that. You want to take a big sentiment right now in the American public as to how some people feel about this. Now, I was watching one of the media outlets yesterday. I'm not going to say which one because you get too political one way or the other. But, the guy who's very prominent, he was out there and he's not outright saying it, but he's bashing the fact that we're starting back up. And that's fine. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of my friends, there's family that I have that are against everything opening up. And that's everybody's opinion. But what I don't like about him is how he goes out and he says, that's fine. Let's just go ahead and open up and let everybody get sick. I'm like, hey, easy there. That goes two ways. Yeah, it's possible that more people get sick, but it's also possible, and judging by the numbers, it's more than possible that a lot of people could be hurt financially that might make it worse in any other way. We've been talking about the mental health of this country was already bad walking into this. It's not being made easier. You can make the argument either way, what's right or wrong, but to sit there and bash somebody and say that, oh, that's just ridiculous you're doing that. I'm like, hey, that's not true. I am a fan that it should be opened up with very strict social distancing, but I'm not sitting there bashing somebody saying, oh, you're ridiculous for saying we should close. There's a big difference between the two. And it does tend to get to me when you're watching these mass medias that affect so many people and they're giving that advice out. I'm like, that's kind of almost irresponsible. You're using your opinion to really focus on the rest of the world. And what you're saying really isn't true to everybody. So I think that's a hard part to acknowledge as well. I mean, we all are in acknowledgement that the virus is around and there is not a cure for it. We are well aware of what the consequences to the virus are. And I think it's up to the American people at this point, whether they decide whether they move forward or not with it. We've been made very clear as to what can happen to us or what can happen to others. It's just like the issue in Dallas with the salon owner who's been told she can't operate and she's defying that ordinance. That's a tough one. It's tough to say, does the government have the right to tell her you can't earn a living the way you want to, versus protecting what's perceived as a health issue for a mass health issue that could kill everybody, versus that might not be true and they don't know. That's a fine line to walk when you start talking about the freedoms of this country as to whether the government is strong enough to say you can't do that. And that's where we walk a fine line with this. But I think we're doing the best that we can. The most positive thing, and I'll end on this so we can get to our show, the most positive piece of this is the fact that they did yesterday come out with, they do believe one of the drugs is actually helping. And that is a huge piece of this. I think everybody is of the opinion that if there was some type of cure easing of this, we would be a whole lot better off as we take the next steps that we're doing. But that was some very positive news. And I think the timing's good, as a lot of the country is set to open tomorrow. That was really good news to hear. Okay. So enough with Corona. We have to address it. It affects our business, affects the shows that we do. Let's go ahead and talk about what we are doing today. As always, I bring my crew on. I cannot stand doing this by myself. They do a much better job of talking about these things than I do. Got two of my main guys that have been with me for quite some time, both personal friends of mine, really good real estate agents. Up here on the top side, you got Mike Dellis. He is a longtime personal friend, very good real estate agent. Anybody who knows him, they really ought to reach out to the guy. I hate to say this, anything good about him, but he's a kind guy. He's smart. He has a lot of common sense. He's very reliable, a very good.
Why is David laughing?
Yeah, right. And yeah, so Mike's up in the Denton area, and but he handles just about anywhere in Dallas-Fort Worth. Mike, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good to be on.
You doing okay?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. So one of your daughters' birthday yesterday or the day before?
19.
19. That means you're
19 years old.
You have a 19-year-old. That's ridiculous.
I know.
Awesome.
Wow, you're old.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. I'm telling
I
you.
got my other guy over here, David Tung. He's a card in himself. I don't know why we put him on the show, but he's pretty smart too. And we like having him. He's a man of all parts. He's had a really interesting career, and he's a young guy at that. So he is
Thank you.
too. Yeah, he's a very good realtor as well. And hey, David, how's your golf game going? Has this disrupted you a little bit with
I'm
your?
sure.
Yeah, I
we're
was
hurting
going to
his
go
game.
play, but got to be on the radio, so I'm going at round 3 this afternoon.
So, have you been at the courses that you've been at? Have they been open for the last few weeks, or because some have?
Yeah, it's being open. It's just no golf carts allowed, and you're forced to walk the entire course.
Which is not a bad thing for you, right?
No,
Good, right?
no, I can't feel my legs, but that's besides the point.
Well, so a lot of people don't know. I got to make sure which way I'm pointing. So Mike over here, Mike is I'm going to call him a professional golfer because he is. He would say he's not anymore because he doesn't. He's not as active at that. But Mike's a professional golfer, and he'll tell you, walking those courses, it'll whip your ass down a little bit. It's tiresome to walk them. So I did see that a lot of the courses this coming week are now doing the you can ride, but it has to be one per cart, and they're going to try to keep them as separate as possible. So,
right, or if you come from the same family members, then you can ride together.
Right. So that's cool. And I'm glad to see. The golf part, you can have social distancing in the golf. So I'm glad to see that will be eased up and people can get out there. I think some people need to have some type of outlet.
The way you guys play, you are social distance.
He's been trying to learn. I felt bad before this. He was playing every day to learn, and then this comes out. So I was thinking about him the other day, whether this screwed him up or not. Although it couldn't have been. It was already bad. So I mean,
my old club is rebranded. It's a different club now. It's a different name. It's called Merido now. But they have.
Mike, talk a little louder. Talk a little louder there, buddy.
That's all they are. They're just caddied. They're just caddied. That's all they are. So they're actually, doing a tournament with players like Justin Spieth, Tony Romo are going to play in it just to help the caddies out. All the money going to it's going to help the caddies.
I love it. That's great. So many people affected by what's going on, so many ingenious ways of people trying to help. All right, we're going to have a conversation today. This is one of my fun topics because, anybody who knows me knows I've got a pretty good language issue when it comes to profanity. So this show is going to be on about bad words used in real estate, but it's not those types of bad words. It's not the type of words that I typically use. It's the bad words in real estate. And there are some terrible ones. There are some terrible ones that we use, and you wouldn't even think that they are a problem. But I will tell you, this particular show is always good for new agents, but it's just as good for existing agents right now too, because a lot of the existing agents use some of these words, and I don't think anybody's ever pointed out to them like, hey, you better be careful. One of the unique things about running a large firm and having a lot of people and being a senior instructor at one of the largest real estate companies in the country, I've seen a lot of these words and how they're used and how they're affected. A lot of times we go through a lot of court cases. We have to be informed with what we do. And you'd be surprised how the courts look at some of the words that we use. So it's going to be fun. I like this one. This is one of my favorite shows that we do. I haven't done this one in a long time. I think it's been well over a year since we did this one. So that's why I wanted to catch up and do it today. So let's start and talk about some of them. One of my favorites is when somebody says something's new. Okay. It's amazing how many people view the word new as being different, as to what new means to you. So, Mike, if I asked you, what do you think new is in general, as new as compared to what real estate? How do you view it? There's no right answer. I'm just curious what you think new means.
To me, new means new build or within the last year.
Okay. You think within the last, and we're talking about even accessories that we put onto the house too. So you think that's a year, right?
Yeah, I generally a year, or you could say new as of the last 2 years. But to me, new is a new build.
Okay. David?
Pretty much, I agree with Mike.
Yeah. What about things like a roof? When is a roof new to you?
I would say probably within a month.
Okay, so you have a month. So that's where I'm getting with this. So you think it's a month. Mike, what about you?
I'm sticking with the same thing. If it's within a year, I'd say it's new. You know, if they haven't started depreciating the roof yet, it's new.
So I like this conversation because it's really emphasizing 2 points to me. Okay, one is that, and these two guys are professionals, and they're right with what they're saying, but it depends on how you view the way they said it. In general, if someone said, "Hey, that roof's new," I would probably be like, "Yeah, it's probably been a year, so I'd probably consider that new." All right. However, as far as documenting whether it's new or not, you have to be real careful, especially in the state of Texas, when we say a roof is new. Because if we say a roof is new in September, that might not mean a damn thing to me if we just went through a hellacious spring where we had hailstorms. Because we have a lot of hailstorms in the state of Texas. And it could be only 2 or 3 months, and that roof is no longer new. So this is a phenomenon we see in a lot of our listings where, first of all, the seller acknowledges that the roof is new. And then if the agent isn't experienced enough, they put in their description, they put new roof. Okay. Now, if they do that, and we use like what both Mike and David were saying, that the roof is, if it's within a year, it's new, we say the roof is new. But we do this in August or September where we've gone through a bad spring. You get yourself in a lot of trouble there, because all it takes is one hellacious. I don't know why I keep saying hellacious today. It's on the head today. It only takes one storm with golf ball size or bigger to make that roof completely unusable as far as insurance standards go. So it's not new. So a lot of times when someone tells us that, we're like, "Hey, I need to be more specific with you." Now, I'll go further than what they said. We have people that we've had clients before where they've said, "Yeah, that roof's new. We put that thing back in '86. I'm like, that ain't a new roof. 86 is not a new roof. I have people
It should have been replaced already again.
Awesome. We just put it in 2006. Y'all, 2006 in Texas is not a new air condition. That's actually almost outdated. Most air conditions have a life of anywhere from 10 to maybe 15 years if they're really good. So for someone to sit there and suggest that an air condition's new just because it was the first one they put in since 1950, that's not new. So we have a lot of people that do this. Okay, so the air conditioning in the roof, it's funny. We mentioned the air conditioning in the roof. We always talk about guts of the house. Two of the primary guts of the house do become the HVAC and the roof. So these are big issues that become problems when you say something's new. Now, if you want to walk this forward, when someone says that, they put that in their listing that the roof is new, an insurance adjuster goes in there and says, "Well, the roof is new, everything's fine," and then they come to find out this roof is trashed. Then we've created a problem that we should have known about. Now, thankfully, there are double checks in the real estate paperwork world where the seller's disclosure requires the seller to put, "Hey, when was the roof last replaced?" Now, this is a good conversation piece too. So, David, when you review a seller's disclosure, if you saw that the roof has not been replaced in 10 years, as a buyer agent, what does that mean to you, or what should you do with that information?
If the roof has not been replaced within the last 10 years?
10 years. It says the last time it was replaced was 2010.
I definitely have an inspector to double check on the roof. And before I even do that, I may actually do it myself, visually inspect the roof from the ground up and making sure it doesn't have any other visible defects.
So that's right. But even further, from a common sense level, in your mind, what would it be telling you that if it's been 10 years and you live in Texas, what do you know has happened many times?
It's going to warn out wind damage, hail damage, and others, nail popping out or whatever.
Mike, what might your response be when you see that on a seller's disclosure? If you're talking with another agent, what might you say before you put a contract on that house to that other agent?
So that's going to be one of the things that it's going to be a red flag.
Yeah,
will definitely need to be looked at.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion, and I'm a lot more vocal and blunt, like most people who know me. That's how I am. I'm like, "Hey, that thing says it's been 10 years since it's been replaced. I happen to know for a fact that area has gone through 4 or 5 hailstorms. One was really bad in the last 10 years. You can't possibly tell me that you think that roof hasn't needed to be replaced yet. I want to go on record before we do this, that this will not be used as part of the negotiation. I'm telling you right now, if that roof needs to be replaced, that's going to be done. And we are not going to be saying, well, we did the roof for you. The roof should have been done 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm a lot more vocal to the other agents setting up the table. I know damn good and well, if it's been 10 years in certain areas, there's no question about it. That roof, I don't need to be an expert. I know that roof has to be replaced. So you have to be careful when you're talking with that. You want to set the expectation, because what you might find is a seller who has done something terrible. Maybe they did get insurance money and they didn't use it, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense that a roof hasn't been replaced in 10 years in certain areas in Texas. So
they still ask that on the seller's disclosure, don't they?
What's that?
They still ask that on the seller's disclosure.
They do,
don't they?
They do. Yeah. But a lot of times you'll get a bland answer on that. A lot of times you'll get a bland.
I don't think so.
Yeah, or a generic. Well, it was the here or there. But the bottom line is the ones that actually put 10 years ago. That's it. That in itself means to me, I'm like, there's no way. Oh, and you were asking. It still asks, did they use insurance funds? Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now that's what I'm talking about. Some of those people outright lie, which, by the way, that's a great way to get sued, is mm-hmm. lie on the seller's disclosure that you took insurance money and you didn't use it for what you were supposed to do. You can get a lot of trouble for that, okay? But then you have the person who honestly just forgot. They're just like, I really didn't remember that we did that, which is ridiculous. But, seeing how the average person doesn't know what their mortgage payment is, that doesn't surprise me either. So those are concerns that I have when I'm talking with people. So new can be a very, we're trying to do a better job on the show of pointing out takeaways from the show. Using new in your listing description or anything for that matter, you can use it, but you damn well better put what you define as new. Basically saying, if you're going to say new, you say new as of the date that it was actually installed. AC is new as of 2008. Then whoever's reading that can say, well, that person's a moron. That's not new. But at least you told them what your definition of new was. You can't just say new generically is the takeaway from here. Okay. So that's one.
If you're writing a description about that, I mean, technically speaking, if it's a house built in 2010, 2008, some things would need to be replaced by then.
Absolutely.
And it could be as early as 2019,
right,
where it was a roof or the HVAC or the condenser or whatever.
Right.
And, you can just list, those 3 things were replaced. You didn't really say they're new. You said they're replaced in 2019.
And that's okay, because you stayed away from new and you acknowledge that they've been replaced. That begs the buyer agent to ask the question, when were they replaced? And that's a different story. So yeah, that's good.
You said new as of 2019. That's only 4 months ago technically.
It's subjective more than anything, which is the biggest problem there. Love this conversation. Now, this is a good one for the veteran agents. The show's geared towards a lot of new and upcoming agents. This is a good one for the veteran agents, because there's a lot of veteran agents out there that still do this. Now, again, that doesn't mean just because I've done this for a long time that I'm any smarter or any better than any veteran agent. Believe me, I have my shortfalls and I listen and learn things every day. But I'm going to tell you, this one, I know for a fact, because I've seen it legally get pushed up to where it was an issue. So if you're on the other side of the show going, oh, that's not true, I'm like, well, have you ever had someone potentially take you legally on it? And if you haven't, then you can't be a part of this conversation, because I've seen this happen. You'd be surprised by it. And it's when we talk about how you describe a school in a listing description. So the number one relocation question that someone who's relocating will ask is, what are the schools like? It's the number one. In fact, there's not even a close second. What are the schools like? What's the ranking? What's the rating? All that stuff. It's the number one question that we get. Okay. So you have all these agents out there and their listing descriptions, and the show's all across the state of Texas, and it's all across the country. But we're very vocal about the fact that, especially in the North Texas area, we have some very good school districts in the North Texas area, some of the highest ranked school districts in the country. And we're very fortunate for that. So you have a lot of agents that use that in their listing description. I think it should also be pointed out, especially since the show is housed in Dallas-Fort Worth. Dallas-Fort Worth is considered the #1 relocatable city in the country. There are more corporations, more jobs anywhere with the cost, and combined with the cost of living. Of course, New York, Houston, LA and Chicago have larger job opportunities, but here is considered to be the best as far as cost of living and the jobs that are available. So we have a lot of people that come here. So we get these questions quite a bit. So you see in a listing description, sometimes you'll see something like recognized school district. Recognized is one of the components of the ranking system in the state of Texas that acknowledges a school. Recognized is a very good school. That means it has a very high ranking, deemed to be very attractive for a lot of people that are moving in. Okay. So we teach agents that you have to be factual in your descriptions. Okay. This show, I titled this show Bad Words in Real Estate. For anybody who's in real estate, especially anybody who's an academic in real estate, this show really should be titled Puffing. This is called puffing. So if you want to take away from a real estate term, what we're discussing right now, the term is called puffing. We are not talking about smoking, vaping. We are actually talking about an issue where someone is talking something up more than it should be. Okay. Now I'm telling you that because this one's confusing. This isn't necessarily puffing as much as it is being legally correct. So let's say that you put in your listing description in April that this elementary school, whatever, has been recognized by the state of Texas. Okay, that's an official ranking in the state of Texas, and it happened in April. And you put that on your listing description. If all these people who are relocating from California, Michigan, and they're like, that's awesome, that's exactly what we're looking for. So they go in, they purchase the house, they love it, everything's happy. And then in July, the new rankings come out. And the new rankings say the school is now average. Now, it has been held in court cases where the agent has been held responsible. And I will preface this response with, it is infuriating because this is how the legal system works. But agents have been held responsible when they notated that a school was exemplary and then it became, or exemplary or whatever, recognized, and then it became pushed down to average. They've been held accountable for that. Now the agent responds very quickly to, oh, hold on. I stated a fact. It's a fact when I stated that the school was recognized. The judge many times, and it's so infuriating because this is exactly how a lot of judges work. The judge has many times pointed out, did you say that rating is subject to change? Now that is infuriating. That is infuriating that the common sense should dictate that obviously it is subject to change. But the fact that we didn't put it in there like that, let me tell you guys, I've got my hand slapped for that before. So you can sit there and say, oh, that's not. I'm like, yeah, if it's never happened to you. If it's happened to you, you know better. And that's what the whole point of the show is, to take the 20 years of experience I have and give it back to you and say, look, if you're new, this can happen to you. And if you've done this before and it hadn't happened to you, hey, take my word for it so you don't get in trouble, that you can be hit for that. Yes, it's stupid. Yes, it's ridiculous that the average person should know that that was a fact. The agent didn't do anything wrong, but the courts don't see it that way. So you got to be careful there. That's a big one that a lot of agents mess up on one. All right. Well, and before we leave that too, Dallas-Fort Worth houses some of the, we were talking about some of the most premier school districts. A couple of them, you get into the Southlake School District. This is something else you have to be really careful about. So Southlake is deemed to be one of the most attractive zip codes in the entire country. And there's a reason for this, especially for those of us who watch nationwide. Southlake has a history of producing major blue chip athletes that eventually get into college and professional and the professional. And there are people that go through utmost lengths to put their child in the Southlake School District specifically for athletics. Now, when you have someone where you've put that it's a Southlake ISD and you haven't researched correctly, you better be real careful that you put that ISD in there, because there are some areas, and it doesn't just have to be Dallas-Fort Worth, it's wherever you're at, but like in Dallas-Fort Worth, especially with the one we're talking about, the Southlake District, right near the Grapevine School District, there's a road there. The school district shifts back and forth all the time due to the population. So sometimes those people on that road are Southlake, and other years they become Grapevine. Okay. Now, we have people, just to really emphasize this, we have people who come in and say, I don't care if I have to live in the crappiest house in Southlake, we need to be in Southlake. We have people that give that as criteria for living in that school district because of their child and their athletic, what they want them to become. If you put someone like that in that school district and you're off by a mile or two and they change it, believe me, they are going to come after you asking you, how did that happen? Why didn't you warn me that this could possibly happen? So you have to be very careful. Now, y'all, when it comes to school district, and I'm in the minority here because I'm very careful and very conservative when it comes to things like this, but when somebody asks me which school their kids go to, I am very vocal about, hey, you need to go talk to the transportation department in the school district, because that's where you need to go if you really want to know where your child will go to school. You need to check it yourself. That's not my kid. My kid's not the one that's going to live there. It's your kid. And if you're that concerned about it, you need to call and check to make sure. I can tell you off the record, I'm pretty sure they go there, but I am not the one who is going to put your child's athletic career, whatever it has to be, on the line because you referred on me when you could have gone checked yourself. You need to check. It's your child. You need to go check that. So that's something else that we watch very carefully when we're talking about bad words, how specific we get in the listing description. That's a good takeaway too. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about the use of the word family. All right, Mike. Mike, when we talk about family, what do we have to be very careful about when we use the word family in real estate?
Family-oriented neighborhood.
Family-oriented. We have to be careful that we abide by fair housing laws. Okay? David, on fair housing laws, what does it say that we cannot discriminate nor steer to? What is one of the choices? Why? Why do I have to put him on the spot and he doesn't answer that? Now you see why this show is good when you have a senior agent here and he has to be told. Now look, in defense of David, he knows the answer. He just doesn't like being on the air and have to answer stuff like that. The answer we're looking for is you have to abide by family status. You cannot.
Over 6 religions, family status.
And I know you know that. I know personally that you know that. It makes me laugh when you put someone on the spot.
He just drew a blank.
It's not, these guys make it look easy because they're fun to be around. It's not easy to be on the show because you're asked questions sometimes and you're like, I know the answer, but I just don't. I do lots of podcasts for lots of people across the country, especially in the Keller Williams environment. And there are times that I get asked questions. I'm like, I know the answer, but I don't know how to respond to this thing. So I can relate to that as well. So family status, you cannot be biased towards family status, which means you cannot refuse housing because of someone's family status. I cannot tell you. So we're talking, this isn't a fair housing show, but it is a show about bad words that are used. And one of the worst words that are used, especially in the state of Texas and anywhere else for that matter, is where someone says, this is a great family neighborhood. You see it all the time. I can go on to the MLS listing services right now, and I can pull at least probably 1 out of every 10 that I look that says this is a great family neighborhood. Now, this is the brilliance of real estate, because the average person would say, not only is there nothing wrong with that, that is a statement from an owner that they would say, I want you to put that in there. I've had owners tell me, I want that to be in the listing because these are the neighborhoods that have that weird old walk sign, that weird fluorescent green thing that said, watch our kids, whatever. That type of neighborhood where someone says, this is a great family neighborhood, and I want that to be in there. It is against federal law for us to say that this is a family neighborhood. We cannot say that in our listings. Some of the people, the new agents are like, whoa, I had no idea. Some of the veteran agents are like, I didn't know that. You cannot use that word. You cannot say it's a family neighborhood. It's against federal law. The fair housing laws protect family status, and you cannot suggest, because family status, if you say that, suggests that someone who might be single shouldn't live there, or they can't live there, or they might be persecuted against because they're in there. You cannot say that type of word. That is a very bad word to use when you're talking real estate, is to suggest family. On another subject that doesn't necessarily refer to bad words, this is one of the number one issues we deal with when we deal with property owners who are leasing, because the property owner is the one who eventually decides whether that person is going to live there or not. It is amazing how many people in the general public, when they are leasing their home, say, hey, I want to make sure you say no kids. It is against federal law to say that you cannot allow kids to live in your rental, with a few bona fide exceptions, such as a senior living community or something like that. You cannot say that. I love it when the owner tells me, what's my house? I can do whatever I want. No, you can't. You can't shoot somebody either. You can't kill somebody in there. There are laws that are in place, and this happens to be one of them. So you have to be real careful with use of law of family. That's a very good takeaway from this show, is acknowledging that you cannot use the word family in your listing description or any type of public advertising. Another one of my favorites is when the agents, so many of us are guilty. I am too. I'm not hypocritical. I've done this before. I'm pretty sure David's done it before, and Mike maybe as well.
I'm sure.
Yeah, never. I love it when an agent in Dallas, Fort Worth says the backyard is an oasis and a mirage. All right, look, here's the problem with a mirage. To have a mirage, you typically have to have a desert. All right. And we're about 350 miles from any type of desert here in the Dallas Fort Worth area. To suggest that your backyard is a mirage, an oasis, that is a quintessential definition of puffing. Someone is absolutely making the house look better than it really is. And the funny part about this particular show, it is in the nature of a real estate agent to be a good salesperson. They are supposed to make the house look better, but they have to do that with the confinements that they're stating reality. This is like the phenomenon where someone says, this is the best water. I'm like, well, it's hard to have the best water. The real water breakdown is the actual same of H2O. The formula is the same. It's very hard to say that this water is better than the other. So it's a tough one that we see quite a bit, where someone, they just fudge a little bit. They just go a little too far, where they start talking about, what the backyard looks like. This also is the same conversation where you see an agent say a spacious backyard, and they take the picture from up here on the roof and they extend it as far back as they can. In reality, it's like a zero lot line. So you have to be careful with someone who suggests that it's spacious. These are very good definitions of puffing, where somebody is making it look a lot better. You don't want to be on the other end of puffing's not be on the other end of puffing. That's funny. You don't want to be, David's like, well, you don't want to be on the end where someone suggests to you that, hey, that is not what you wrote in there. We brought these people out here and now they're pissed off because they wanted a big backyard and they can't even put a trampoline back here or even a barbecue grill, it looks like, by the way you describe this. You don't want to be that agent, okay? Same conversation where I always teach my agents to be very careful about using absolute words, okay, in your description. Saying something like, this is the best floor plan. I can't stand when an agent does that. When one of mine does that, y'all, I never yell at my agents, but I have a very satirical way of approaching them. When one of my agents does that, I'll call them and I'll be like, hey, because I review all my listing descriptions. I go through them because I want to make sure they've done them right. So I go through and I'll call them and I say, hey, look, I noticed that you put in the Oakmont section that this is the best floor plan. I'm like, did you go poll all those people in there and ask them if that was the best floor plan? Because I happen to know that there were 6 builders when that community started, and they each had 10 to 15 floor plans. And I have a hard time believing that yours is the best. You could have worded that 100 other different ways. It is one of the best. It is, in my opinion, one of the best. It is in a range of the best. You could have said 100 things besides it is the best. That is a bad word in real estate. It is a bad word for you to use an absolute to where you have no back out. You have no other way to go. You have nothing else you can say. You cannot move away from it. You've backed yourself into a corner. That can get you into a lot of trouble. This one happens to be very controversial because HUD at one point said you can't use it because HUD's the one that administers the Fair Housing Act. And then they said it's okay. And I tell you, when a government agency has gone back and forth on an issue, that doesn't make me any more comfortable. That doesn't make me any more comfortable because that means to me that they're unsure. And what I'm talking about is when you use the term, it's within walking distance. Mike, since David did so poorly on the last one.
So it's my turn? My turn to be bad.
If someone suggests that it's within walking distance, who could that possibly be a problem for?
The disabled.
Yeah. I was worried that he wasn't going to give this answer either. And then I was going to be like, I give up. Yeah. Someone who cannot physically walk.
Or walk very little.
Might have been worded with a couple blocks away or, 0.2 miles away. You didn't have to say within walking distance. Now, there's a lot of people that get annoyed with this conversation because they're like, that's taking it too far. Well, y'all, welcome to the legal system in real estate. That's all they do is take it too far. They take it too far, and they're constantly looking for a target on us to say, well, you didn't tell me that, or you shouldn't have said this, or you were being biased because of this. And in reality, all we were doing is just trying to sell the damn house. But we're trying to educate people on this show, and that's a word that really shouldn't be used. You really shouldn't put in there within walking distance. For the mere fact you could have used 100 other different explanations to say what you wanted to say. So there's no reason for you to risk someone coming at you saying, well, you didn't, I can't walk. Why do you have to be discriminatory towards me? Oh, this is probably the best part of the show on this one, especially if we start winding it down. So David, we'll give you here. Is it okay to suggest that an area is bad? Can you say this is a bad area? Is that a good
Absolutely not.
No, it's not.
No. I mean, what's bad for me or what's bad for them is different definitions. So
let's give him some credit. He screwed up the other one. He got that one right. That is word for word exactly how they are taught. What's bad for you doesn't mean it's bad for somebody else. That is a very subjective term. We talked about earlier in the show that relocation, the number one question is, what are the schools like? Well, if you want to do with the distant number two is, hey, how bad is that area? Are there any crime issues there? I'm going to tell you right now, the response, and this is especially for the new agents, the veteran agents know this, but the new agents, when you're asked that question, don't you ever answer how you feel about it. Don't you ever answer, oh, it's a very good, that is not how you answer that question. You want to take away from this show, and it's a good one. When that question is asked, you give the very technical response. You need to contact the local police department. They have all the reports on what the recent crimes have been in that neighborhood and historically what's happened. You should review them to make sure that you are comfortable with that area. That is not a question we answer. It is very embarrassing how many agents out there refer to an area as bad. I am not hypocritical. I have been on calls with my own crew where I have the whole crew on, and someone in my crew says, well, I don't want to show over there. It's a bad area. So I stop for a minute. I stare at them, even though I'm staring at like 100 other different people on the screen. And then I'm like, hey, nice comment. A, B, C, and D live in that neighborhood, and they're actually on the call. Maybe we should talk to them about how bad that area, and then they all jump in too. Yeah, what do you mean by bad? What is that supposed to mean? You cannot say that type of comment. Now, if you're asking, well, no, it's true. It is a bad area. I'm like, all right, what did you mean by that? Do you have the crime stats to tell me that it's a bad area? A lot of times when you tell someone it's a bad area, someone can think you're being discriminatory because if you have one major ethnic group in there, they might have an issue with the way you said that. They might say, you didn't say that because it's a bad area. You just said that because you don't like this type of person. You got to be very, and the sad thing, even though some of you on the show will be like, that's ridiculous, it's not. There are a lot of people who make that statement specifically because that's how they feel about that area. That is not a good statement to make. Now, I'm not suggesting if you know that an area has a reputation for being rough, I'm not suggesting that you just, go, oh, it's fine. You should always be protective of yourself, but you do it by fact. You do it by facts, and you don't describe to everybody your opinion of the area by telling them it's bad. I've even seen on a listing, and thankfully this is not one of my crew, but I've seen it where someone says great crime area. I'm like, what is a great crime area? Does that mean there's a lot of great crime, or does that mean that there's no crime, or does that mean the type of crime is okay for you? Yeah, I've had people who suggest an area is dangerous because some punk kid got mad at his girlfriend and threw a brick through the window, and it got posted in the news. I've had people say, oh, that's a really rough area. That ain't rough. I'm going to tell you, I've been in a rough area before. That's not rough. But it's all in the way you look at it. But when you start wording it like that.
And we're not talking about New Orleans, man.
Why are we talking about New Orleans? There are, look, in my previous life, there's not any part of this country that I haven't been in. I was a regional auditor for many years with the folks that ran Foot Locker and Foot Action. And I'm telling you, there are areas that you go into. It's not like what you would think. And it's funny what some people deem to be a bad area. And I will tell you this from that same comment. Some of the worst areas in this country, and believe me, I've been in them. I've probably felt safer there than some of the safest areas in the country. Because I'm going to tell you something about a bad area. In a bad area, most of the time, the crimes are within the people that are there that are disliking it. It's not you. They usually are too smart to do something to you because they know that you have nothing to do with that neighborhood and you probably don't belong in that neighborhood. To sit there and suggest some of the tougher areas I ever had, it was the nicer areas that had crime issues and not the area that's deemed to be tough. So it's very biased to sit there and say an area is tough or give an example of it. I'm not going there because of this, especially to word it. You cannot word it like that. There are a lot of people that are offended when you refer to an area as bad and you don't even know the facts of the area itself. So that is something you should never address. And God forbid, documenting it. That's even more stupid than even saying it. So don't ever say that's a great takeaway. Don't ever say that that's a bad area. It's crime ridden. The only way you back that up is if you say, well, these are the facts. You decide whether you think that that's a bad area or not. That's the way that you describe those types of areas. So just a couple more minutes here. And for once, I actually went through the actual agenda that I wanted to address. I'm actually almost through with the ones that I wanted to go. I rarely do that. But, this one's a different type of show because it's not so much theoretical as it is, hey, these things here are bad to say. The other one I see a lot of agents make, and this is a newer age concept where someone refers to, like they act like they understand the green requirements for a house. The environmental standards that have been put. So a lot of people have interest in that. And a lot of people ask about that. Let me tell you about a really big mistake you can make is when you have someone who's very environmentally strong and very educated on what is green, and then you try to act like you know what green is. If you want to get torn apart super quick, just start pretending you know what green means. Because if you don't know the requirements and the laws that go with it, they will shred you apart. They know exactly what some of those things mean. They know exactly what it means when they say the insulation has to be this high. They know exactly what it means when they have an E-type window. What rate does it have to be? They know exactly what it means when they say the air-conditioned Sears rating is this versus that. When you start pretending to know those types of things, you want to talk about bad words. When you say this is a good greenhouse, you better damn well know what green means when that person goes in there. They will tear you apart. Okay, the show's fun because that's not, like I said, it's not theoretical on this one, but it is really focusing in on some things that you should know as a real estate agent. And I like this particular one because not only was it geared towards new agents, some of the veteran agents on this should have paid attention to this particular show. So kind of off the stream of what we're normally focusing in on, but definitely a core value in real estate. We really are trying to protect you and educate you and keep you out of trouble. This show is good for keeping you out of trouble. There are many things that we talked about on this show that were issues for me or one of my crew at some point or another. So these aren't just made up. These aren't just, oh, I thought of these today when I woke up. These are things over 20 years that I've experienced that a lot of agents across the country experience as well. Y'all, I want to thank y'all for watching me. I want to thank Mr. Michael Dellis and Mr. David Tung for being with me. Always good to see them, especially, I'm affected too in the virus as much as I don't see my crew as much as I normally do. I usually get to see these guys once a week when we go on the show or they walk through the office, and I don't get to see them as very much. So it's good for me to be able to catch up with them as well. There are some things about the new norm that I love, and it is one of them that we actually see each other maybe a little more often than we normally would. So appreciate you guys being on, sharing your expertise. The show's much better with y'all on it. Everybody else, thanks for having us. Hope you have a great week. Let's look forward to opening up this economy back in a very safe and very intelligent manner and getting back to somewhat we consider to be the new norm. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
See you.